Hi everyone, welcome to our little meeting here today. This is a local chapter meeting of NARFE Chapter 1137 here in Merritt Island in Florida. We're going to do a light look at parliamentary procedures adapted from Let Us Amend Our Ways. There are two ways to conduct and participate in meetings, the correct way and the wrong way. We learn best by example. Sometimes a bad example can tune us in as well as good one will. We will experience today is seeing and hearing a poor example followed by a good example in several of the most common situations in our organization. Let's listen to our chapter's meeting. It's just about to start. Here's Mrs. Wrong.
Well, people, I guess we'd better get this meeting on the road. I tell you, when it dawned on me that our meeting was today, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I couldn't seem to find any notes from last month, and I couldn't remember what was planned for this meeting. I certainly will be interesting to see what develops. We are only 30 minutes late. Wow, that's not too bad. Doesn't look as if there are too many here. It doesn't look like there's too many here anyway. Does anybody have the agenda?
The president should be friendly, professional, timely, and courteous to those who have made the effort to be on time. The president should call a meeting to order promptly. Their preparation need not be written, but should have a thoroughly planned agenda. Let's hope Mrs. Wright will do better.
The meeting will come to order.
It's just that simple. By her directness, simplicity, and poise, Mrs. Wright has set the pattern for the meeting. Mrs. Wrong will now introduce the head table, the officers who serve with her.
I would like to introduce my president-elect, Frida Follows, my recording secretary, Nora Note-Taker, my corresponding secretary, Wilma Wrightswell, and my favorite, my treasurer, Marilyn Moneybags.
Offices are not private property of the president. The offices of any organization belong to the members and should be referred to as your vice president, etc. Let's hear from Mrs. Wright.
It is with great pride that I introduce your president-elect, Frida Follows, your recording secretary, Nora Note-Taker, your corresponding secretary, Wilma Wrightswell, and your treasurer, Marilyn Moneybags.
Now let's see how Mrs. Wrong, as secretary, proceeds with the minutes.
Well, let's see. The minutes. You want the minutes? Well, I have a turkey baster. You never know when you're going to run into some turkey. Oh, I found them. I found them. Oh no, that's my shopping list. Could you wait one moment? Eggs. Okay, let's see. Okay, I found them. Okay. Oh, here they are. I was afraid I had lost them. The club had a meeting in September. Because it was raining, at the time of the meeting, only a few members were present. All regretted Wilma Flintstone's absence. She was out of town on vacation with her husband. Blanche Devereaux, chairperson, reported that she wouldn't be able to get her committee work handled before February. But they'd make a decent report then. Cliff Huxtable, program chair, asked for suggestions for the next meeting and reluctantly agreed to have some old school teacher come to discuss how to run a chapter under old business. Steve Douglas reminded the chapter members to donate to the trash and treasure sale. A motion to give $25 to the Alzheimer's Fund was made. Respectively submitted, Nora Note-Taker, secretary.
Oh dear. First, Mrs. Wrong should have been ready to read her minutes with no delay or excuses. Her minutes should have been clear and concise, but full enough so that all could understand just what she was accomplished at the last meeting. They should have included the time, the place, the date of the meeting. We all miss Wilma, but her absence should not have been included in the official record of the happenings for our chapter. Mrs. Wrong reported the work of the committee without identifying the committee or its work. If you remember, Mrs. Wrong reported a motion made and does not say who made the motion or whether the motion was carried or was lost. Mr. Douglas' report was put under unfinished business. The old words respectfully submitted are no longer used. According to Robert's rules of order, she referred to a committee chairman as chairperson and chair. In any group that wants to be correct, we use the correct form, chairman. Can Mrs. Wright do better with the minutes?
The regular monthly meeting of Apollo Chapter 1137 was held January the 10th, 2012 at the Merritt Island Public Library. A quorum was present. President Mary Jones called the meeting to order at 12:15 p.m. The minutes of the previous meeting were approved as read. The treasurer reported a balance of $631.50. Committee reports were made. The program chairman, Cliff Huxtable, announced that the speaker for February meeting will speak on parliamentary procedure. Blanche Devereaux, audit committee chairman, reported that the committee has had difficulty getting together to audit the books, but will be meeting on the 6th of February. Steve Douglas reminded the members of the trash and treasurer cell March the 7th at the Florida National Bank parking lot. Contributions may be dropped off at Southwest School, room 104. The only item of new business was a motion made by Bob Clark that the chapter gives $25 to the Alzheimer's Fund. The motion was seconded and passed. The meeting was adjourned at 1:45 p.m. after an informative presentation on parliamentary procedure by Phyllis Wood, a speech teacher at Roaring Lion High School. Nora Notaker, Secretary.
Notice that the name of the seconder is not needed unless the bylaws say so. The presiding officer should ask, are there any corrections to the minutes? There being none, the minutes stand approved as read. If corrections are made, the president states, the minutes are approved as corrected. We will now hear the treasurer's report. I see that Mrs. Wrong is still working on her report. Mrs. Wrong, will you please tell us what your chapter's finances?
In January, I paid $10.64 for flowers for initiation, but I should have paid it in December. I didn't have the bill until the end of December. I paid $12.95 for the speaker's lunch. She wanted to charge us for speaking, but I said, no way. Well, we had to pay postage of $26.50. That looks like too much to me. And $36.78. No, make that $38.88 for printing. That leaves $95.73. But really, it's $93.73 because I have a bill for $2 that I haven't paid yet. At least that's what I think the balance will be. Seems as if there should be something else, but I guess that's all.
I'm sure we're all as befuddled as Mrs. Wrong. We know that Mrs. Wrong is honest, but failed to give a good account of herself. Mrs. Wright?
Treasurer's report for January the 1st through the 31st, 2012. Balance on hand January 1st, $113.82. Income from dues, $16. Total income is $16. Total receipts, $143.82. Disbursements, speaker's lunch, $12.95. Flowers, $10.64. Postage, $26.50. Total disbursements, $48.09. Balance on hand January the 31st, $95.73.
The president then says, you've heard the treasurer's report, and are there any questions? There being none, the treasurer's report will be filed for audit. There is no motion to accept the report. A large part of any business meeting is taken up with reports of standing and special committees. If a report is given from the executive board meeting, a resume is included only when a board specifically authorizes to handle most of the business. No action is taken on the resume. It's simply read to inform the membership. Any recommendations from the board will be taken up under new business. Now let's hear from the audit committee chairman. Mrs. Wong?
Who, me? Good gracious, I was so busy with the house full of company, I forgot all about it. Now let's see. As I remember, I was to find a date and get together with the treasurer and some other people to audit the books. Well, I can do that next time.
We won't say anything here about the duties and responsibility of Mrs. Wong. Surely Mrs. Wright has managed her responsibilities better.
Madam President, the audit committee met on the 6th of February. We met with the treasurer and audited the bank statements, receipts, and expenses for the year 2011. I'm happy to report that we had a successful audit and all records are in good order.
That is better. Actually, Mrs. Wright had company too, but she managed to have her report ready. Let's see if our two friends have anything else on their agendas. Mrs. Wong?
Oh, I can't seem to remember if we have any old business. If I do say so myself, we do manage to finish things up one way or another. If anyone can think of something we have overlooked, speak now, or shall ever hold your peace.
You never say old business. It's always unfinished or new business. Let's hear Mrs. Wright.
There is no unfinished business. We will proceed to new business.
That's better. Mrs. Wright has shown her directness and simplicity again, which we all appreciate. We have taken a look at the officers and committee chairmen and how they help or hinder the meeting. There are just a few points we want to cover with concern the membership. Suppose a member wants a certain project. In order to have a discussion, he will have to make a motion. This is done by addressing the chair or president. Mrs. Ron?
I make a motion that our chapter sponsors a table at the local health fair on June 22nd.
Does that sound right? Well, it isn't.
Madam President, I move that our chapter has an information table at the local health fair on June the 22nd.
Now let's suppose that after the motion is seconded and has been discussed, the consensus is that June 22nd is not a good date. It's simple to amend the motion. One simply says, I move to amend the motion by striking June the 22nd and inserting June the 29th. The amendment is seconded, discussed, and voted on. If it passes, Mrs. Wright says,
The motion as amended now reads, I move that our chapter has an information table at the local health fair June the 29th. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no.
remember, an amendment must be voted on, and then the main motion as amended. Well, the day has been long. Let's see how we end the meeting. Mrs. Ron?
Well, people, I've had it. All I can say is that I'm glad this is over. Let's go home. I'm glad that we were able to be here today, and I hope I can come again next time. I want to get home to see Dr. Oz. See you all later.
No doubt Mrs. Wright has a better way to adjourn her meeting.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Is there another way to adjourn a meeting, Mrs. Wright?
Is there any other business to come before this meeting? There being none, the meeting is adjourned.
Many thanks to Mrs. Wrong and Mrs. Wright for participation today. You have seen business meetings handled both ways, and I think we all agree that Mrs. Wright accomplished more and left in much better humor than did Mrs. Wrong. As usual, the best way is the easiest way.